Welcome to Small Talk with George. When I was 12, I was obsessed with CB radio. We lived in a big 10-room house which had a full walk-in attic. I set up a little radio room there, and I spent hours talking on the air. But if I'm being honest, my biggest dream wasn't being on the radio. It was a bicycle. It was a special kind of a bicycle, one that had what was called a banana seat. It had high handlebars. It was called a Stingray. And then Christmas came. My parents bought me one. My best friend Alan and I did everything together. But Alan's parents were divorced. His dad moved out. Then his mother's boyfriend moved in. And after that, Alan didn't really have a close relationship with his parents. One day, Alan and I met a girl on CB radio. We found out that she worked at a convenience store about 30 miles away. So we did what any two kids of that age would do. We got on our bicycles and rode all the way to meet her. We had a good time talking with her and then rode back. At that time, I was smoking little cigarettes. Well, no, they're not cigarettes, they're cigars. They're called Tipperilla, or Tipperillos. Can you picture a 12-year-old riding a Stingray bike, smoking a small cigar? Now, Alan was the kind of guy you noticed. He was good-looking, smart, confident. I looked up to him, and he had an awful lot of influence on me. He had Playboy magazines in his basement and other things that weren't meant for 12 and 13-year-olds. But that didn't stop us. My dad owned a real estate company. He was an insurance broker. He did income taxes. He flipped houses, and he did all kinds of things. When I was 13, he decided to build a small apartment complex. It was 3 stories. 2 apartments on the first floor, 2 on the second. The third floor was our home. The house we were living in sold before the building was finished, so we had to move across town until it was completed. That was when my mom decided she wanted to attend church. Of course, my sister and I had to go with her. Dad didn't go. When I told Alan that I was going to a Nazarene church, he told me everything the Nazarenes don't do. All the restrictions, like it was a trap. I don't know anything about the church, or I didn't then. I was just trying to figure things out. But after my move, Alan and I grew apart. The last time I saw Alan for years, he showed up with a Ziploc bag full of what we thought might be marijuana. We went to the library to research it. I don't remember the conclusion, but I do remember this. That was the last time I saw him for a long, long time. My mom, my sister, and I kept going to our local Nazarene church. And that's where I met Debbie. Debbie was younger than me, and she came from a really conservative home. Whereas mine was, well, somewhat dysfunctional. My parents were chronic liars, very dishonest. I found out that Debbie was involved in everything at church. The 6 p.m. youth meeting, the 5 p.m. choir practice, the Wednesday night services. So anytime I could, I would be there. I wanted to be where she was. We spent a lot of time on the phone. Now, I hadn't given my heart to God yet, but I did learn how to play the role. I knew what to say. I knew how to act. I think I fooled some people, but it didn't really change my life. Still, the church people were very supportive of me. One man didn't ask. He told me, "You're going with me to the father and son banquet." Obviously, I didn't argue. The youth group was all girls and me, but it was active, and thankfully there were several young adults in the church who took us under their wing. They made a real impact on me. And while that all was happening, I was also an entrepreneur. I remember going to Goodwill and buying 5 felt-tip pens, Sharpies we would call them today. I believe I paid 25 cents for 5 of them. That's a nickel a piece. Then I sold them for 25 cents each. 5 in, $1 out every time. I made quite a bit of money, and I did other things too. Then one day, Debbie made herself a dress, and she made me a tie to match. And I thought, if she can do it, I can do it. So I went out and bought a pattern and some material. I used my mother's sewing machine, and I started making ties. I sold them to the men at church. I made real money doing it. Years later, I asked some of the men who bought them, did you buy them because my parents didn't come to church? Or did you buy them because you liked them? They told me they liked the ties. One man even said he still had one that he wears. Well, I have to believe him, I guess. Let's talk about firecrackers. My friends and I loved lighting firecrackers. If the police would come by, they would see us and take them from us. Now, what bothered me was that the police would take our firecrackers home and give them to their children. Now, fortunately for me, one of the children was one of my friends, and so he'd bring them back and we would light them. Well, that's kind of how it was, a never-ending cycle. Well, when I was 12, I realized there was money to be made. Back then, a package of firecrackers had 16 single firecrackers in it, and it sold for 25 cents. A bundle of firecrackers had 50 16 firecracker packages. Are you following this? Now, a crate, like a pallet, had 50 bundles. Now, remember, these technically weren't legal to light off, and especially not to sell. Now, we could light them on the 4th of July, but that was it. You can imagine a crate of firecrackers cost a lot of real money. My dad loaned me the money to buy one. We bought it and put it in the back of our garage so no one would know that we had them. I sold them by the pack for 25 cents each. Maybe you can do the math, but I made a lot of money. Now, I'll explain later why that entrepreneurial mindset mattered in my life. While attending the church, basically to see Debbie, one of the youth leaders encouraged me to attend family camp. Well, I was working that summer, so I could only go for the last weekend. But, wouldn't you know it, I brought all my firecrackers, and I made money while I was there. Now, if you understand camp meeting, and most of the evenings we had a campfire, and we had all kinds of young people throwing firecrackers in the fire while the leader was trying to talk to us. Of course, I didn't light any firecrackers. I didn't throw any into the fire, but I made a lot of money. One night after curfew, we were all in the boys' dorms. We had bunk beds, and everyone was trying to pretend that they were sleeping. And then knock, knock, knock on the door. This big guy walks in. And if you're from that area, you might know the name Wimpy. I doubt that was really his real name, but he stood in the door, a man of authority. And he just told us, you're not supposed to be doing this. You were lighting firecrackers during campfire. You should have known better. Then he paused, turned around, started to head out, turned back to us, and said, and I'll never forget it, if I were you, I would go back and get your money back from the guy that sold you those firecrackers. Well, that was me. Fortunately for me, even back then, I was a big guy. So that never turned into a problem. I'll tell you how, what they say, the rest of the story, how that unfolds in a future podcast. But for now, remember this. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it.